Welcome to the Becoming Whole podcast, where we help men, women, and families learn and live God's good, holy, and beautiful design for sexuality. I'm your host, Josh Glazer, and we're glad you're here. You ready? Let's dive in.
Well, I know I've been there, and I know that many of you have been there, and I certainly know that all of you know someone who's been there. That place of feeling and asking the question, why can't I stop watching porn? I remember a time for me walking across my college campus way back when and praying earnestly, angrily, desperately, God, I hate this stuff. You hate it. I love you. You love me. So why won't you just take it away from me? I had no idea how I could love Jesus the way that I did and continue to return to porn, even though I promised myself over and over and over and over again that I would never do it again. Why is porn so hard to get away from? What I didn't know back then that I do know now and has increasingly become understood since then is the great news about how God's wired us neurochemically and how that plays into his beautiful design for us as human beings, especially when it comes to sex between husband and wife, but how that whole system gets hijacked and launches us into addiction to porn if we use pornography on a regular basis. So today I'm going to talk about that. Why can't we stop looking at porn? And more importantly, when we understand that, it'll help us to walk more towards freedom, to open this part of our lives more to Jesus so we can walk in greater and greater freedom. So to start off, we have to address how God designed us. My friend Christopher West has said, and I love this, I don't know if it's original to him, but he says, the devil does not have his own clay. The devil does not have his own clay. Everything, every temptation, every sin that comes against us, it has a genesis, begins with the raw material that God has made. Twisted, yes. Contorted, yes. Crumpled up, yes. Misused, yes. Misdirected, yes. But it originates with God. God is the creator. Everything else, there was nothing except God, and then God created. The old phrase for that is ex nihilo. Out of nothing, God created. And so when we're talking about the problem of pornography, we have to recognize that something at the core, something at the beginning comes from the raw material that God has made. And we have to ask ourselves, why did God create the raw material the way that he's created it? So I'm talking about design and I'm talking about intention. And so in intention, not the words intention, but the word intention. God has created us. He's designed us with intentionality. And that's true in the area of our sexuality, our sexual drives, and the way that our bodies and our brains are wired neurochemically. So let me walk through 4 different neurochemicals that are released both during sex and at other times in our lives, and describe how pornography hijacks those chemicals so that we become addicted. The first chemical is called serotonin. And serotonin produces a sense of well-being or calm, a release from stress right after sex. It's been referred to as the happy chemical because when your serotonin levels are high or normal, you feel happier, calmer, less anxious. You can focus better. Serotonin levels can be increased through things like exercise, exposure to sunlight. That's good news for those of us who are entering into spring right now. A healthy diet can increase serotonin levels. For those who have, there's something wrong with your serotonin levels, medication can also increase serotonin levels. So serotonin is a normal part of our lives. It's released during normal, healthy activities, including marriage between husband and wife, which is a beautiful thing if you think about it. So God designed that sex between husband and wife would bring a sense of relief from anxiety, a sense of well-being, a sense of health, a sense of calm, a sense of release from stress. Isn't that beautiful? I love that. What a great gift God's given us in that marital embrace. The second chemical is called norepinephrine. And this chemical actually works both in the brain and the body. In the body, it can actually give you a sense of exhilaration, feeling alive and awake, increased energy. In the brain, it's involved in increasing attention. How about that? Helping a person to focus on a task. So you can imagine in the ways that's released during regular life, how helpful that is. In the marriage embrace, in sex between husband and wife, think about that. There's this release of feeling alive, awake, exhilarated, and there's increased focus and attention. So the world fades away, crowds out. So even the combination between norepinephrine and serotonin, the anxieties and worries of the world fade away, and the focus is increasingly on your spouse. You can imagine how norepinephrine's effect in your marriage actually helps to increase faithfulness between husband and wife when they're being faithful to each other. Isn't that powerful and beautiful? God is not working against us. He didn't set our bodies to work against us. He actually sent the normal cycle, the normal flow of the neurochemicals in our body and brain to work towards marital faithfulness. Norepinephrine also helps to store significant experiences. So Dr. William Struthers, in his book, Wired for Intimacy, says this. He says, "We were designed to store significant experiences of sexual intimacy with norepinephrine's help." We were designed, this is by God's design, to store significant experiences of sexual intimacy. This means for a husband and wife who are faithful to each other in their sexual intimacy, then when sexual desire comes up, they remember those significant moments of sexual intimacy with one another, and they're not distracted by other things. Powerful, beautiful. The next neurochemical is called oxytocin. This one's familiar to a lot of us. Oxytocin has been called the bonding chemical. It's a neurotransmitter that bonds spouses during and after sex. Interestingly, one resource I read said that oxytocin is released in women more during the foreplay leading up to sex, and it's released more in men after sexual climax. And so there's great complementarity between husband and wife with the way that oxytocin bonds them together. Oxytocin lowers blood pressure. It helps to bring on sleep. And it can also be produced during meaningful conversations, a meal with friends, other bonding experiences, relational bonding experiences, a good cry with a friend. Oxytocin is also released when a mother nurses her young baby. So you can see in all those situations, oxytocin is working to help bond two people together. It's a part of developing closeness with other people. It's not the whole thing, but it's a part of that process for people. And then the last chemical is called dopamine. Dopamine increases focus. And people used to call dopamine the pleasure chemical. They thought it was exclusively about bringing a sense of pleasure. But research has found that dopamine helps to direct craving towards that which satisfies. So it has a large and important role among different neurotransmitters. It's about seeking satisfaction. It's about helping you to know, I'm feeling a certain craving. Where do I go to get that craving met in an adequate way? Dopamine plays a part in directing you that direction. So think about let's think about something normal for a second. If I'm thirsty and I run to Coca-Cola, which is caffeinated, to quench my thirst, and I do that over and over and over again, well, then dopamine is going to start directing my craving towards something that actually in the moment might make me feel satisfied, but long-term dehydrates me. Instead, if I go to healthy drinks, a smoothie, water, you name it, when I'm thirsty, then dopamine helps to lay down trackers to direct me towards water and healthy drinks that don't dehydrate me. That's how dopamine works. In the marriage bed, dopamine helps to direct a partner's craving, a spouse's craving towards his or her husband or wife. Isn't that a beautiful thing? So think about all the other neurochemicals that I just mentioned, norepinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin. When someone's feeling the need to feel more alive and awake, more connected, a release from stress, dopamine plays a part in saying, hey, I know someone who can help with that. I know someone who makes you feel alive, who makes the cares and worries of the world go away, who helps you to feel connected again. Isn't that a beautiful image of what the marriage bed is meant to be? Now, of course, if we're taking our sexual desires other places, then dopamine is going to remember that, just like it does with the Coca-Cola, and it's going to start directing us to other places. So this is the natural way that God has designed husband and wife to come together in the marriage bed, and it's actually a great gift. Now, let me pause there for a moment, because I started this podcast by saying, why can't I stop looking at porn? Why do I struggle? Even though I hate it, I don't want to do it anymore, I keep doing it. I promised myself 1,000,000 times I wouldn't do it, and 1,000,001 times I keep going back and back and back again. I hope you're beginning to get a sense of why that is. Pornography hijacks the process of these neurochemicals, and it starts to push a person towards pornography to get the kind of satisfaction that they're really meant to get through normal, healthy activities in life with other people, and certainly in normal, healthy marriage relationship with a husband or a wife. What happens over time, I gave you that illustration in the beginning of kind of a dopamine drip where you just press the button and you feel better in a moment. What happens over time as somebody uses pornography habitually is the brain and body recognize that the amount of serotonin, norepinephrine, oxytocin, and dopamine that are flooding the system it's too much. It's too much. Because in a normal, healthy relationship, in normal, healthy conversations, in normal, healthy marriage, in a normal, healthy work life, in a normal, healthy diet and exercise life, these things take time. They don't just happen on command or on demand. But with pornography, when a person's feeling a longing for some of these things and the craving is directing them towards illicit sex of some kind, it's on demand. You just pull out your phone and you're looking at porn. And so going back to our initial question, why can't I stop looking at pornography? Well, now we've got at least half of the answer to that question. We'll get to the second half next week, but the first half is just this understanding that we're looking for something real and legitimate. And pornography is offering a counterfeit, yes, but something that we can get on demand. Real relationships, real health, real connection, real satisfaction, real stress relief requires work. It requires something of us. It's not like pressing a button. It's not just logging onto the computer. It's not just swiping left. It requires something of us. Pornography doesn't require anything of us, at least not on the front end. It actually ends up taking much more from us than it gives to us. But that's the trap of pornography, because on the front end, it sounds like it, and it seems like it's just giving us what we want on demand. Everything else requires too much of us. We can get what we want now. And that is the first part of why we can't stop looking at pornography. So real quick, what's one thing that you can do to begin moving away from pornography? If this has been your issue, you haven't been able to stop looking at porn, even though you want to, one of the best things I can recommend for you is that you get some help to begin getting a sense of what you're really looking for. And think about things like serotonin, norepinephrine, oxytocin, and dopamine. What are you looking for? So go back and listen. What do you experience when serotonin's released? What do you experience when oxytocin's released? What do you experience when norepinephrine's released? What might you be looking for that gives that sense of calm or peace or connection or exhilaration or awakeness or aliveness? That gives you a clue about what you're really looking for. And the way that you can use that in your battle against pornography, in your pursuit to leave pornography behind, is by beginning to nurture those parts of your life. Look for ways to receive calm. Look for ways to get connected. Look for ways to treat your body in such a way that you can feel alive and awake and exhilarated. Look for healthy ways to deal with those things. And look also for places where those things are being worked against. So for example, one of the things that I found as I began taking a look at this was that as a college student, I was more tempted to look at pornography immediately before or immediately after a big test or big paper was due. Either right before or right after. Why? Because I was stressed. I was feeling stressed. And I didn't know why I was going to pornography, but I was going to pornography to feel serotonin, that sense of calm. I remember talking to a young man who was really drawn to porn one day. And when he unpacked what was going on for him, he felt really disconnected from a couple of his close friends. He was looking for a connection, that oxytocin. So begin paying attention to those things and you will be well on your way to leaving pornography behind for good. But you're going to need help with that. So find some others around you who can help you discover what you're really looking for. And if you're in an accountability relationship or relationships with people who are trying to help you, that's a great question to ask each other and to really park on. What are you really looking for? I hear that you're tempted. What are you really looking for? Or I hear that you were tempted and you gave in. What were you really looking for? Practice that question, practice getting to the root of it, and it'll help you tremendously. Remember Jesus when some of his first disciples were following him and he turned around and he said to them, what are you looking for? It's a beautiful question. Let his words speak to you today. What are you really looking for? And let him to be tender with you. Hear the tenderness in his voice. He's not scolding you, saying, shame on you for looking at pornography. Instead, he's asking you gently, what are you really looking for? And if he's asking you, it's because he wants to help to meet your most legitimate, deepest needs. Jesus, help meet our needs. and begin, Lord, by helping us discover what we're really looking for. We pray it in your name. Amen.
Thanks for listening in. If you find the content of this podcast helpful, make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That helps other people find the show. And if you'd like to check out more resources to help you in your journey towards becoming more whole, go to regenerationministries.org. Again, I'm Josh Glazer, and we'll see you next time.